Coaches poll came out this week. Miami's at 17. I didn't look at it again. I'm almost positive that's the number 17. The AP poll will come out in a couple weeks. Just a different dynamic in the college football playoff era because it's just for fun and games and to get a gauge on what people think of these teams because it goes out the window when the playoff committee starts to size this up near the end of October. But still, I think it's pretty close with what the Vegas odds say about Florida State, Clemson, and Miami. I again, they're a couple spots, those two programs ahead of Miami in the coaches poll. But what's your thoughts about seeing Miami in the 17 spot to start?
I think we're right where we need to be, right? Me personally, I don't really take too much weight in the preseason rankings. Don't really mean much to me. Once football, starts, that's when it really happens. I expected us to be around 15, so 17 is right around that, so I'm okay with it. I think Miami we still got to go out there and prove it, right? I didn't want to be in the top 10. Out of the top 25, I think we probably would have been a little bit slightly disrespected, to be honest. I mean, we got just so much talent and weapons where it's going to be hard not to rank us. So I like the ranking of where we are. And I think that first game against Florida is really going to showcase and put this team on the map to really, say, hey, this is a different Miami football team. And maybe you guys should start believing. And that's going to start week 1 in the Swamp at 3:30, August 31st. Because as bad as, people expect Florida to be this year or how tough their schedule is, they still have some talent on that roster. And make no doubt about it, any team that goes into that environment, first game of the year, it's 0-0. Whatever happened last year is off the table. Every team in college football believes they are the best team until that whistle blows when it comes to the week 1. And there's not too many environments in college football that is going to be as crazy and noisy like the Swamp, especially week 1. So we're going to have to go in there in a crazy environment, probably going to be the craziest environment we play all year. So it's going to be battle tested, but we have the guys to do it. So it's up to us to really get the W and show what we can do.
Yeah, that's a good point. People should not confuse what Florida's record probably is going to be at the end of the year versus how good they are and how talented they are. They're 5-7. Maybe they'll do better than that. I'm just throwing out a record. Shoot, Vegas has them at 4.5. They're 5-7, could be 8-4 somewhere else. And on top of it, yes, once you get into the Swamp, consider this. Florida had pretty bad seasons the last 2 years, and they beat Tennessee like a drum at home last year. Tennessee finished 9-4, top 15. And the year before, Utah team that went to the Rose Bowl, won the Pac-12 championship, they lost in the Swamp. So it's not an easy assignment by any stretch.
Yeah, and I think we'll see what type of Florida team they have when it gets closer to August 31st. Because like you mentioned earlier with Montrell Johnson, being a little banged up, we'll see who is there and ready to go for not only Florida, but us as well, because we still have a bunch of practices to go. So we need to make sure we get injury-free all throughout camp. But if you lose a guy like Montrell Johnson, I mean, you got to remember, Mark, before this even started kicking off here, they already lost their number 1 running back and Etienne to their arch rival of Georgia. And said, oh, no, he's not really RB1. We have RB1 in Montrell. That's our guy. Well, you also lost your key number 1 receiver, who was most of your offense last year, Ricky Purcell, to the draft. Your number 1 wide receiver this year that you expect is a guy that's never had 100 yards in one football game in a college football career, and that's Trey Wilson. Yes, he's electric, but screen passes and sweeps can only get you so far. How are you going to, where's the deep ball and the big time plays going to come with Florida, especially if you don't have a guy like Montrell Johnson to start week 1? Where's your running game going to come from, Mark? If you lose Montrell Johnson, along with, losing Etienne to your arch rival, your third string running back, I believe, is Trayon Webb, who only has 163 career rushing yards in college football. Your other running backs besides him are either true freshmen or a JUCO running back that hasn't played D1 football. So you are working with limbs at this point. And I fully expect DJ Lagway to get reps at quarterback week 1, not only because he is a 5-star player that, if this is Billy Napier's last year, you're gonna have to bring out all the guns you can, because this is your last show to really showcase what you got. If you don't end up being a good coach this year and losing, most of the games that people expect you to, Lagway is probably not going to be at Florida anyways, and neither are you, right? So the least you could do is give the guy some burn, and maybe it'll save you a job if maybe he turns out well, and maybe he stays at Florida, right? But at the end of the day, if you don't have a running game, I know Graham Mertz can't really run the ball. So that's where DJ Lagway's legs might have to come in, and it might be something similar to how Chris Leak and Tim Tebow worked out, back in the day for Florida. But they're going to have to come up with a lot of different tricks and things up their sleeves, because I don't see that offense having a lot of firepower to keep up with the defense of Miami.
No, it's a great point. Across the board, you covered it pretty well there. Running back is Florida's one of their big strengths going into the offseason, but the top two guys are elsewhere, either in the trainer's room or in Athens, Georgia. And Montreal Johnson is not a home run hitter. He's a really good back, but he's not a home run hitter anyway. And then, we just had a Florida breakdown with our guy, David Waters from Gators Breakdown the other day. And they picked up a two-lane running back who had a nice start to his career, but he's basically working on another surgery. So he's probably not even going to see the field. And Ricky Pearsall turned himself into a number 1 draft pick, and he's gone. They made 2 decent pickups in the transfer portal with Elijah Badger from Arizona State and Chimere Dike from Wisconsin, but they're possession guys that aren't going to make huge impacts on a game, catch a couple balls. So it's going to be difficult to find offense. Graham Mertz, really good, but not dynamic. He's the furthest thing from Anthony Richardson, and had a great season in the pocket, but man, he can't shoulder an offense by himself. He's not that kind of player. Yeah, it's a tough find to come up with points for them in this game when you put it that way.
Yeah, again, I think there's going to be a lot of trick plays, a lot of reverses. I mean, one thing they do have is they have a lot of speed. And the key is you're going to have to utilize that speed and put them in situations where Miami's not expecting it, because Miami also has a lot of speed. So it's not like you're going to just be able to throw, take a sweep to the right and kind of beat the guy to the sideline and hope it works. It's not going to happen. But they do have a lot of track stars and speed on their team. So they're going to have to be creative and utilize them very wisely. And I think Billy Napier, this being, his 3rd year at Florida, he knows he's on the hot seat. He's going to have to come up with, some tricks and ponies to really get some W's this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if he comes up with some trick plays week 1 against Miami to find ways to get points on the board, right? I think the key for Miami is going to be limit turnovers. And anytime you are in the red zone, you need to capitalize on points, whether it's 3 or 7. You got to come away with points every time you can when you're in a tough environment like the Swamp.
Yeah, I know Miami fans aren't shedding a tear, but it doesn't seem like Billy Napier can catch a break. He loses his number 1 running back, most likely with facing a schedule that is one of the most brutal we've ever seen. And it just happened to be the year that the SEC gives him the toughest schedule, that they scheduled Miami, UCF, and Florida State outside the conference. So,
next year's schedule for Florida won't be any different. I don't think it might be like 1 or 2 games differently, but they're going to have a tough schedule next year too. So I think if whoever's the coach next year, if it is Billy or someone else, they're going to be walking into a tough first year.
Yeah. What Brad's alluding to, everyone, there is that the SEC, obviously, with the 2 new teams coming in, basically said, okay, we want to test out a schedule, so we're not going to go into with some kind of long-term plan. So we're going to schedule 24 and 25. And basically all you do is flip the schedule, and everyone you played on the road, you play at home, and vice versa. So they're playing everyone the same. And so unless a ton of teams just do a backflip in the SEC, which is not likely to happen, that all of a sudden Ole Miss, LSU, and Georgia become bad football teams. They've got a rough run for a couple of years. Wow. And Leroy coming back with this one. Will the kicker, Andy Borgalis, win the best kicker in college football? So you got that as well. If it somehow comes down to a kick in the Swamp, you got to be about as confident as anyone in the country.
One thing about Andy Borgalis, one thing he does not lack is confidence. I've known this kid since he was probably a freshman or sophomore in high school. I remember being we would be driving in the truck, and this man would be next to me while we would go watch his older brother kick on Saturdays and Fridays at the Hard Rock. So seeing his career pan out and just mature, it's awesome to see for not only Andy but that whole Borregales family. I love that family to death, man. Very good people. And Andy, if there's one thing he's chasing this year, it's the best kicker that go. I think it's what the Groza Award.
Yes, the Lou Groza Award.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the only thing that his older brother Jose has got on him right now. So I think Andy is going to do everything he can possible. Me personally, I think he got snubbed last year for it. He should have got it last year. But I think if Miami is going to be one of those top 10 teams this year in college football, Andy's going to have to do his thing as well, and he'll have a lot of points and a lot of opportunities to get it done. And I love Andy Borregales in crunch time situations. And the confidence always grows the more pressure that's on him. So I expect Andy Borregales to get that award. So I agree with Leroy on that one.
22 of 26 last year, 4 of 6 from plus 50 yards compared to the winner last year, which was Graham Nicholson of Miami of Ohio. Somebody in the Power 5 picked him up. He went somewhere. Just curious to see his numbers from last year. But yeah, I cannot remember where he went. But as you might expect, if you win the Groza Award at Miami of Ohio, you're going to be kicking for a Power 5 team the next year. 27 of 28. I don't know what the breakdown is, plus 50. So, of course, the two teams played, and that wasn't much of a game, 35-3, but that's not Nicholson's fault, but he kicked one. So
no, I think Andy's gonna have a lot of opportunities this year to get it done. And like I said, there's a ton of talent on this team, a lot of preseason award candidates all throughout the football team. And I think this is gonna be the year where hopefully we get a lot of guys the recognition and flowers they deserve on this football team.